Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's time for the Brown Sports Bag from the heart of the Barrens, a weekly local sports machine. Alongside John Butler, here's your host, James Brown.
Back again this week. We're going to have some golf coaches come in here and join us. Craig Pippin, Casey Edwards was supposed to be here to start with, but then I forgot to text her and ask her if she remembered how to get to our studio, which I should have done this morning, and I just did it, so that was my bad. But yeah, so we're going to do some more golf talk today as we get along, but before we get to that, we're going to talk a little bit about Wimbledon, but I think we've had kind of a fascinating turn of events, and I say this in conjunction with some of the discussions we've had about, like in the NBA, these older professionals who just don't seem to go away, and they seem to overshadow a lot of the younger, players coming up. We saw that. I think we've seen that in the NFL, at least in the quarterback ranks to some degree. It took a while for the Tom Bradys of the world to, relinquish their hold on the popular imagination or whatever it is. And so it's just fascinating to see that this 21-year-old guy, what is his name, Carlos Alcaraz?
Yeah.
Won Wimbledon.
It's not his first.
No, I mean, he's it's not his first. I mean, he's not new to the scene. He's been on the rise over the last year and a half, 2 years. I mean, he's become one of the top players in the world. But, of course, he beat Djokovic in the championship, who's 37, 38 years old.
Beat him last year, too.
Yeah, beat him last year. And, then Rafael Nadal retired 2 years ago when he was 40 years old, and you still have Roger Federer retired 2 years ago. You still have Nadal hanging around at 38 years old.
Been hurt.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's kind of it's this trend that we had seen in so many of these sports where you have these older greats not going away, not kind of giving up the stage, but we have this young 21-year-old guy who's kind of taking it, really. By the way he's played, and
it's not a surprise. He's been coming along, to be honest with you. So I mean, he was in the finals, got beat in the finals last year of the U.S. Open. I think he just won the French.
Yeah, he won the French a few weeks ago.
I mean, he's already got three majors.
Fourth, I think this was his
at
fourth,
21.
Yeah.
So no, and Djokovic had injured. He withdrew from the French with a knee injury. So
right.
Not a surprise. I think the only surprise was he beat him in three, and
it wasn't a close one.
The first two sets weren't close at all, to be honest with you. I think it was a tiebreaker in the third, but yeah, it's definitely a change in the guard. But I mean, Djokovic is he's still in good shape, and Nadal's pretty much done. Federer's retired. I think Djokovic probably has another one or two because he's in phenomenal shape and really has never had any major injuries. So he will still be a threat. But yeah, I mean, Alcaraz, another Spanish player.
Yeah.
By far the best player in the world.
Well, and like I said, I find it kind of a fascinating. I find it fascinating that these athletes who came on the scene in the mid-aughts, 2001. Well, really, some of them were 2001, but a lot of them, really got going in terms of winning their majors, like the 2004, 2006 range. And then, in the NBA, kind of some of the same thing that we saw, some of the, same stuff we'd seen in the NFL. These people, the longevity of these careers, which is kind of celebrated in a lot of ways. I mean, look, Aaron Rodgers is still out there. I mean, he falls in this category as well.
Yeah, he's 40.
Yeah, I mean, but at the same time, in a way, some of them we get to know too well. You know what I mean?
Like LeBron.
Yeah, like LeBron, or even Djokovic and those guys. I mean, sometimes during trying times, they seem to feel like. They seem to project as if they've ascended above any criticism of them whatsoever.
I think it depends on the athlete, to be honest with you. I never felt that way about Brady.
No.
I was always
he was pretty buttoned up.
Buttoned up, work ethic, very team-oriented. So I was never, Rodgers is kind of gone. He kind of turned near the end where he's not near as likable at certain things, to be honest with you. But sometimes it just gets, I guess, a little stale. But Federer wasn't. I mean, he was a genuinely likable person and so forth.
True.
You sometimes you see this in the longevity. LeBron is a huge exception because it's such a physical sport. It's just hard to, he's just a phenom in terms of how he's continue to do that. Brady in football and Rodgers in football, it seems odd, but they play a position where it's possible to play longer. They're not running backs or anything like that.
Yeah.
Baseball, sometimes pitchers can, I think Nolan Ryan pitched he's like 46, something like that. But tennis, which is an individual game, that's if you play up into your late 30s, that's quite an accomplishment.
Yeah. Well, and
of course, golf you can play for a long time in golf.
The wear and tear on tennis, which you don't really think about, but the movements that you have to make. I mean, you
a lot of stop and goes, things. The travel. It's an international sport.
Yeah.
In fact, there's 4 majors. Only 1 major's played in the United States.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and so there are certain body parts, I think, like knees, elbows, traditionally, shoulders.
Yeah.
I would guess maybe Achilles and that kind of thing. Just as you age, because it's not like you can. I don't know what you do to make sure your Achilles doesn't get injured. I mean, it's a.
It seems like a freak thing when it happens. I'm sure there's certain exercises and so forth.
Yeah, but it is interesting. It is good to see. In the NBA, we had the rise of Anthony Edwards this past year, and we've seen him with the Olympic team already, and their trials getting ready to go. Play in Paris. I mean, he's kind of a forceful personality at 22 years old. We do have some people that I think are carving out their place on the scene. I don't know. I guess it's refreshing because, as we've talked about before, like you mentioned the LeBron thing or, Rodgers, sometimes you just get tired of hearing them, because people put microphones in front of them because they are the standard athlete, standard in terms of like the standard people want to reach.
Yeah, well, you're covered 24 hours a day too now.
Yeah.
And so, everything you do, good, bad, ugly, intentional, unintentional, is exposed. Mm-hmm. So I do think that makes it harder too.
Yeah.
And especially if you're opinionated, those things go out even more.
Right.
I think you can probably get away with it if you stay off social media and so forth. You can probably navigate your way through a lot of the troubled waters that are out there. But some choose to, some choose not to. But anyway. Did you watch Wimbledon?
I didn't. Well, I tell you what, I watched the women's doubles championship part of it on Sunday, I guess is when it was.
That's an odd one to pick out.
Well, it was an odd one to pick out, and it wasn't necessarily on purpose. I just happened to be somewhere it was on, and then I really just started watching it because I was fascinated by the match itself because we had, I think her name is Sterniak or something of that nature.
I couldn't tell you.
She won women's doubles at the French Open, but she was playing with Taylor Townsend.
Yeah, an American.
At Wimbledon. So it was not the same partner that she had played with. So the story ended up being kind of interesting to me as I was paying attention to it.
All right.
So, yes, it is an odd one to pick out. So, and I think that, if I'm not mistaken, Taylor Townsend is pregnant at the moment. She has already had a child.
I don't know that.
And so I was just kind of fascinated at, what I was, I guess, watching there in terms of the competitiveness, and actually it was a heck of a match too. I mean, there were some outstanding shots.
That's true of most doubles.
Yeah,
they're exciting or whatever.
Yeah, I guess that's it. I don't really watch the women's or the men's singles anymore. I find the doubles more fascinating these days in terms of the action that's going on there, because the men's singles is so much power, or has been. Maybe Alcaraz is a little different. He's a different, not quite as powerful as these guys that we were just mentioning. That was like their thing, these big serves and that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So maybe that's why I find the action of the doubles, there's a lot more action, seems like. Just volleys, plays, that kind of stuff.
There is action in doubles, there's no question.
Yeah. So did you watch any of it?
I do. I watch Wimbledon. I watch most of the majors in tennis. I do find it interesting. Mm-hmm. Men and women, sometimes more with the women or whatever, but Wimbledon is it's the Masters of tennis. Mm-hmm. It's that same type of
event.
It's an event. The Masters, or you can't a spectator, you can't have a cell phone.
Right. It's
very, very proper, and the Masters do a really good job of kind of controlling their environment. Same thing with Wimbledon.
Mm-hmm.
It's people they're not up there whistling and booing and
right.
If you go to the U.S. Open in tennis, just the opposite. People yelling sometimes even when you're playing and so forth. So it's a totally different environment. I like both, mm-hmm. but Wimbledon is it's unique in terms of being a grass court, and there's very few tournaments across the world that are grass.
Have we ever talked about this before? Have you ever tried to play like on a grass court like that?
No. Only thing I've played on some clay. I don't play. I haven't played in years, but I've played a few clay courts, and I've played obviously hard court. That's it.
I've tried when I was in school over in the UK. They had a grass court, so we'd go try to play on that. I had a friend. He grew up in New York, and so he worked as a ball boy at the U.S. Open because I guess he had that family connection.
Right.
And so, he was a big tennis player himself, and so we'd go and play. He'd, drill the ball at my head and stuff like that because he was good. But, they had grass. We'd go try to play on the grass.
At one time, the U.S. Open was grass.
Yeah.
Right. It's not anymore, but at one time, you're right.
Yeah, and so, so we tried that. We went and played on the clay, and, of course, asphalt was like the thing when you grow up in the States. I mean, if you have a city park that has a court, that's what it is. So I always found it kind of fascinating, though, once you got on a clay surface versus the others, how just different that was. I've always thought, I think that's what I do enjoy about the tennis, the majors, and that kind of stuff, is because the different surfaces should appeal to different types of players. And I think it used to. I think that used to be the case. But I don't know if the power of the on the men's side especially kind of neutralize some of that.
Very few players in history have won the clay on clay and grass in the same year.
Yeah.
I mean, going from the French, which is clay, to grass, totally different surfaces. Grass is fast, very low hops and so forth, and clay is much, much slower and so forth. It's just a totally different surface, and that's what makes the win by Alcaraz even better.
Yeah. What are some other things that kind of stood out to you from the sports weekend that you can think of, or even the last week?
The Major League Baseball draft was yesterday.
Yeah.
I watched that last night, and you had two unusual things. Number one, you had the first baseman and pitcher from Florida was drafted, I think, 5th overall, and they are going to allow him to try to do both.
Oh, yeah.
Which is nice to see.
Yeah.
Ohtani has showed that that's possible.
Yeah.
And he was drafted as a player, a pitcher, and first baseman. Great hitter in Florida. And the kid out of Texas A&M was drafted in the first round, and he is a switch pitcher.
Yes, I saw that. That is fascinating.
Throws right-handed and left-handed.
Yeah.
Thought that was pretty cool. And also, you just seen the transition now, where in the past the early picks were high school kids. Now it's switched to college.
Yeah,
because you know what you're drafting when you
right.
get a kid in baseball you have to stay 3 years.
Well, and we talked about this years ago when the draft was basically at the end of the college baseball season that was still going on.
Or 2 years, maybe you have to say 2 in college. I can't remember. But anyway, it's 3 in football. Maybe it's 2.
Yeah.
But anyway, what when you're drafting now as a major league as a club, those college kids and the college baseball is really elevated, and it's more of a sure thing when you're drafting a college because if you're elite at the college level, it transitions more and more to the next level.
Well, and I do wonder if them moving when the draft is also,
after the season helps. That's the dumbest thing in the world to have it before the season even ended. Yeah.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, you mentioned high school. I think the first high school player taken was number 4 or 5 out of Jackson Prep in Mississippi, Connor Collins or something like that.
I think one of the first 5 was high school. Maybe. Yeah, but it's predominantly early on it was college players.
Yeah,
the first pick was a second baseman from Oregon State. He's from Australia. Oddly. Yeah. Second, Wake Forest, 3 picks in the top 10. Mm-hmm. The second pick was a pitcher from Wake Forest. 6 or
went to the Reds.
Went to the Reds. You had another pitcher, and then you had a shortstop, I think, from Wake Forest.
I was fascinated by that, the Wake Forest, because, I guess they were supposed to have a good year, and they did have a good year.
They were number 1 in the nation for much of the year.
Yeah, so, but the tournament run, ends up being a disappointment for them,
Well, they got beaten, I don't know if it was a regional or the super regional. So, yeah.
So, and, here was the thing I was going to ask you about, all right, because I saw this. Ryan Waldschmidt, the left fielder, I guess it is, out of Kentucky.
31st pick.
Yeah, but it was called a prospect promotion incentive pick. What does that mean?
Best that I can tell is that I heard a little bit about something like that last night. I may be talking over my head, but I think what teams are rewarded now if you if you draft a player and they're on your 40-man roster and they play like the next year.
Okay.
And you're awarded, if you do that, with a compensation pick, you get an extra pick in the first round.
All right.
So you're rewarded for, I guess, drafting and immediately using players or whatever.
Yeah, so not just shelving them in the farm system.
That's
and
correct.
then
You got to put them on a 40-man roster and so forth, and sometimes they don't do that where they get an extra year out of them. So,
I see.
So that was my interpretation. I could be wrong, but I think I'm right.
Well, and I just had not ever noticed that. No,
It's new.
Yeah, so that's why. I mean, I think there were 2 teams that had that pick. One was that guy from Kentucky that went to the Diamondbacks. I don't remember the pick 32 was in the same descriptor. I don't remember who that was or who it was that got drafted or who did the drafting.
Right.
But yeah, I just was like, I have never seen that before. And I guess there were, and then as you get down, there were like competitive compensation picks, different things of that nature that I saw listed down, still in numerical order, but I thought that was kind of interesting as well. All right, well, Coach Edwards is here. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about Barren County girls golf.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
All right, we're back here on the Brown Sports Bag, presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, to talk to Casey Edwards. Some folks will remember that you were the girls' golf coach at Barren County before.
Yes.
But your last name was Mannion at that time, I believe. I don't think
no,
you
it
were
was
married
still
yet.
Edwards. It was Edwards then. So,
Oh, was
yeah.
it?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
I didn't realize that. I was thinking that you had not gotten married yet when you were coaching the first time around. But, so you are back coaching girls golf. Your daughter is going to be a senior this year. I'm guessing that was at least some motivation to want to do this. Plus, I mean, you know a little bit about golf. You've played some, a little bit.
Yes. I've always wanted to get back into coaching golf. But when the kids were little, it was just best, it was hard, you know, with childcare and everything. And they're older now and involved in sports, and it was at a time to where I could get back involved with that.
So whenever Kenzie was younger, because she cheerleads as well, did you think to yourself, I'm not sure if she's going to be a golfer or if she's going to be a cheerleader?
I still think that sometimes. She loves cheer more than golf, but that's okay.
Yeah.
She does well with both. So.
Yeah. I mean, it's a family tradition for you guys to golf. So, how hard was it not to kind of just always kind of be on her and say, look, you just got to play this game. You're going to love it. I promise you. I love it.
Yeah. So myself, and then I had a sister that played as well.
Oh, yeah. Whitney, right?
Yes, Whitney. And but I wanted them to find their own sports. I've never pushed it too hard on either one of my kids. My son he plays football, so he doesn't play golf either. But we wanted them to find their own likes, and I didn't want to push it just because it was what I did.
Yeah. So, but with her, this being her senior year, was that part of the motivation for you saying, yes, I want to coach this team?
Yes, it's nice to be able to watch her. She actually likes me coaching. She doesn't like me watching her the whole time. So
Gotcha.
it's good for her and me that way.
Yeah.
And then I enjoy working with all of them. I always love to see junior golfers and coming along. The sport is actually exploding right now. It's numbers in junior golf are just up tremendously, and I think that's everywhere. But especially in Kentucky in this area.
I was going to say, when you were coming up, there was probably just the one tour you guys could play on the summer with. I mean, unless you were like trying to do the junior PGA stuff.
Yes, mainly there was. It's changed drastically now. There was Kentucky Junior PGA. There was also another tour called Baker Gary Dunn when I played, it reminds me a lot of the Bluegrass Tour that's around now. But those were the two. There was not near as much national tours as there are now. But there's tons of them that kids have to choose from at all levels.
Mm-hmm. So how much do you encourage the ones that are on your team to get involved in playing those on the summer tours, either the BGT, that Bluegrass Golf Tour, or just whichever?
I've told the girls I think that's the best thing that they can do to improve their game, is getting that experience of playing competition throughout the summer, and then when fall rolls around, they're used to the yardages, they're used to the competition, they're used to walking. So I think that really does help tremendously.
So you have pretty much the same team you had last year. I think you had no seniors last year is the way it worked out.
Right.
And you were really the assistant coach last year anyway, right? So, I mean, it's not like beyond your daughter, these girls are really familiar with you, and you're familiar with them.
Right.
So, I mean, when you look at this group that's coming back, I think Kinsey, Lucy, and Chloe all qualified for that sectional last year, and the year before they all got out of the region as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, those three.
So you've got a lot of experience with the three of them, with the competition, and then I guess you have Tinsley Nagel, who's also back. You did mention before we got started that Gracie Myatt decided she's going to focus on softball and not do the golf, which makes sense. She's a pretty good softball player. But that means you've got a fifth spot and a bunch of people you're trying to find who's going to be getting in those tournaments and playing with you guys.
The girls are actually playing a qualifying round tomorrow,
right?
18 holes at the lake. There is, official start to golf season is today.
Yeah.
And there is really in golf, there is no time in between when you can officially have a practice and first tournament. Our first tournament is next Monday.
Right.
So I like to have more than one qualifier, but really that's all we have time for.
Yeah.
So we will have that qualifying spot tomorrow. I'm probably going to do a little bit of rotating around here the first couple of weeks. You have to really, I don't know how many emails I've had today of wanting rosters and average scores and things like that. So we will do that, hopefully get some scores going tomorrow. I'll get that sent in. I'm going to be able to take 8 to our first tournament, which is next Monday in Owensboro.
So you're going to have like a team and then 3 individuals?
Yes. We'll have a team of 5 and 3 individuals, and then they will, from there we'll use those scores to go to a couple of tournaments as well.
Right. So who are some ones, because actually there were a bunch of, I mentioned those 5 that were your regular rotation last year, but there were a bunch of ones that were out there that I saw at different tournaments, especially the one you hosted. I think there were like 12 or 13 Barren County girls out there playing in that. So who are some of the ones that you're looking at?
Yes, we've got really 7 that played a lot from last year. I like to take as many of them as I can to the tournaments because that's how they're going to gain experience and get them prepared, because we do have 2 seniors this year. And then next year we're going to need, for sure to fill those spots. So Carden Kinslow, who is going to be a sophomore. I've got Rayleigh Terry, who's going to be a junior. Allie Spillman, who is, I think she's going to be a junior as well. Those are 3 returning ones that are playing that I think will, slide into that spot really well. We've also got some new ones coming on that have a little experience playing as well, which I think some of them are going to try to qualify tomorrow as well.
Yeah. So what are your expectations for your team this year?
Well, we've got some high goals. Those 4 returning will be able to compete, I think, very well in the region. We're in one of the toughest regions in the state, probably behind the Lexington area. There's 3 or 4 teams that are really going to compete, depending on the day, who could come out on top. But we want to run at that regional title this year. And I think if we play well, we do have that capability. So that, we've got district. Allen County has a really good team as well. So I think they will compete pretty well with us. And then, Glasgow's got a ton of girls coming on as well. So it's going to be good competition, even in our district as well. But, we're going to play in several tournaments to give them every opportunity. We want to try to make All-State again. That's the top 15 teams in the state. So these 18-hole tournaments is where that comes from. They take your top 7 tournaments and then seed you from there on who makes that.
Yeah, you get those points, and I think they're called Tier 1 tournaments or something of that nature.
You can get them in different tiers. I don't think that's changed. I think it's 70 players. If you have 70 players, that's the top amount of points that you can compete for those all-state points.
So you mentioned, well, one thing that's kind of fascinating about golf is school doesn't start till the middle of August or whatever. And you're about halfway through your season in terms of playing in your tournaments and all by then.
Yeah, the last 2 weeks of July are absolutely crazy with golf. I think we have 7 18-hole tournaments in that time period. They keep, actually the last regular season tournament is September the 7th.
Wow.
So you do have to play a lot before school starts because they're 18, it's went away from the 9-hole matches like it was when I played to these 18-hole tournaments, which is the way they seed everything now. So we're trying to play in as many of those as we can to get that opportunity.
Yeah. John?
Well, I'm just kind of jump back in here. The weather, how's that been? It's been hot, I take it. Is it? I mean, that's part of play, though. Is that correct? You got to get
it. That's another thing that's changed. Back years ago, you just played. They might turn on the water sprinklers and tell you to run through them. But now we do have to monitor that temperature.
Correct.
And we're going to play very early in the morning, and I will be monitoring that as we play because I think it's 98 degrees tomorrow. We did,
not including the heat index.
Yes,
That's right.
We did have a tournament last year. We were actually on our last hole in E-Town that we had to go in. We had a 3 or 4 hour heat delay.
Wow.
Had to go back out at like 7 o'clock to finish that last hole, just because you have to monitor that, and understandably.
Yeah,
so.
and it's different when you're in a cart and you can keep moving and so forth. But a lot of these 18-hole, of course, you're carrying your own clubs or pulling your own clubs, and the pace of play, if there's a lot of golfers, is kind of slow, which kind of makes it even.
Yes.
That would drive me crazy heat-wise, to be honest with you. I like to play at a pace and so forth. Where is the region this year?
The region is in Russellville at Rolling Hills for girls.
All right. It's Indian Hills for the guys. Is that right?
Yeah, they've signed some contract. They're there at Indian Hills until I don't know when.
The girls is going to alternate between Rolling Hills and Russellville and Park Mammoth.
Okay.
Every other year.
Park Mammoth is open. I don't know. I mean, it's wide open, no trees at Park Mammoth, right?
Yes. The native grass that they have put in and the sand traps are very difficult there. But
I've never been to the one in Russellville.
It's pretty. It has some trees. It's pretty open.
Do you try to play the course before the region?
Yes, we will. I don't think they're hosting any tournaments there that I know of, but we will go play some practice rounds before.
You mentioned the region, and playing in the region, that kind of stuff. And I mean, you kind of have the usual suspects. I mean, historically, that would have been like Glasgow and Bowling Green and some of those. I guess Monroe County way back when. But recent years, I mean, South Warren's been good. Glasgow's rebuilding their program. So you kind of have maybe Bowling Green's got some pretty good players now. But also we've got some guys out, I guess girls out in the woods of the region, so to speak, like from Cumberland County and coming from, like you said, Allen County has a pretty good group right now. And maybe they've got some pretty good ones at Russell County. So it's kind of an unusual time, I feel like, in where some of these top golfers are coming from in the region.
Team-wise, Bowling Green and South Warren are very good.
They got depth. They got the numbers.
Well, they've got 4 pretty solid. Both teams have 4 pretty solid. Actually, South Warren had 3 really solid, and then the 4th was kind of and then Bowling Green's got 4 good as well. And then Allen County, they only have 4 players, but they're all pretty decent players. So
yeah, it's what I guess you have Kinsey Willen at Cumberland County. I mean, she won the region last year as a freshman, and looks like she's played really well.
She has played
long.
Great. I've kept up with her in the summer. They actually just put her in our home tournament.
Oh yeah.
So she will be there.
So do they not have a full team though?
I am not exactly sure on Cumberland County.
Yeah. So,
they're just bringing her as an individual to our tournament. So.
Well, tell us a little bit about that. When is your tournament?
Our tournament is August the 3rd. We have a full field. We've got 100 golfers and a waiting list, which is awesome.
It's a tier 1 then.
It is definitely a tier 1.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, all right.
And we've got people from all over the state coming. We've got Paducah, Lexington, Louisville schools, E-Town.
That the last couple of years, or maybe maybe not the top team, but of 2 or 3 of the top teams in the state have come to your tournament.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think Madison Central was one of them a couple of years ago, and maybe Mason County, not Mason, Marshall County had a pretty good group, I think, and they
Marshall
came.
County is coming.
Yeah.
Sacred Heart is probably going to be ranked the top team in the state. They have girls from all over that come there, so they are probably your top ranked team in the state. Marshall County is always good. They are coming. There's Oldham County School coming.
What's their reactions to Barren River State Park, especially the back 9? they admit it's tough?
Yes, we actually hear lots of. Sometimes I hear that from my own girls. So.
It's got to make you better, though, if you can play.
Yes, absolutely.
If you can play there.
Absolutely.
Because there's several holes in the back 9. If you stray at any right or left, that one par 5 on the back 9, there's no bailout.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's long and no bailout. You got to hit it down the middle.
Yeah, it's always great. You see the people out there, and then they think they hit a good shot, and then it goes right into the edge of the woods, and then good luck finding it.
Right.
So, well, is there anything else you want folks to know about the upcoming season or your team?
Well, we're doing 3 different levels this time to try to build our program and keep it going in years to come. We're doing the varsity team that's going to play the 18-hole tournaments. We're going to do a JV team that's going to play more traditional ladies' yardages, 9-hole matches after school, like, the way things used to be.
Right.
And then we're also going to do a middle school program this year.
Wow.
Marley Shirley is actually come back. She played for Barron several years ago. She's the head middle school girls golf coach, and she's also going to help with the high school team. So we're very thankful to have her helping out, and she's doing a great job, and hopefully to keep it going in years to come.
Do you ever step back and just think of how incredible it is that you have, what did you say, 18?
We've got somewhere between 18 and 20 coming regularly to practice. So
I mean, when you were in high school, what was the number? 6, 7?
Yeah, something like that. And we actually had that, a couple years ago at Barron. So it's building, and that's like I said, I feel like golf is just exploding, especially junior golf.
Right.
So.
All right. Well, we've been here with Casey Edwards, Barren County girls golf coach, and her first year, second time around.
Yeah.
And this is Brown Sports Bag presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, and we'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
Hey, John, have you been watching any of the international competition in basketball? I think there was the game last week between France and Serbia. We got to see Victor Wembanyama versus Jokic.
No.
You did not watch any of that?
I did not watch any of that.
I tell you what, it's kind of fascinating to watch it because you watch a guy like Jokic make some of the passes that he makes in the NBA. And I'm not saying the guys he's playing with on his international team are bad. They're good players. It's just that they're not that good. And so you realize just how important it is for a guy like him to have people who he can actually pass the ball to. And it kind of makes me think about, the conversation about Caitlin Clark early in the WNBA season. Mm-hmm. And we talked about this. It wasn't that, like that first game, 10 turnovers. You go back and watch the game, and you would see the moments where she would throw a pass to somebody who could not handle the ball.
Or couldn't handle, just wasn't used to playing with her either. Yeah.
And so, it's a turnover on her, but, sometimes these things should go to the teammates. It's sort of like interceptions for quarterbacks. Did the quarterback throw the bad ball or did the receiver run the wrong route? Sometimes a stat goes on somebody that's not really their responsibility. But anyway, I was just thinking about that as I was watching that game, because of that fact, Jokic is still out here being Jokic and doing the things he does, but he just doesn't have guys to, just throw a lob to at the rim who can just go get it and finish it.
A little different.
It is. And so when I think about that, then did you watch any of the men's Olympic team? I don't remember who the tune-up game was against.
They played
the other day.
two.
Yes.
They beat Canada.
I was watching the one with Canada.
And today they played Australia.
Okay, I did not see that one today. I forgot how many people in the NBA are Canadian, like Jamal Murray, apparently.
That's correct.
Who are on that Canadian team.
And Kid Alexander.
Yes, that's right.
I mean, there's more than people think.
Yeah. So I was kind of fascinated as I was watching that. But what did you kind of think as you?
I didn't watch it.
You didn't watch it?
No, I didn't watch. And of course, they played Australia today. I told you, I'm not interested in the
I know
Olympic
you're not.
basketball. To be perfectly honest with you, I have zero interest.
Yeah.
Zero, none at all. And what a shocker that Leonard decided he couldn't play after being on the team.
Was that message from him, which obviously is not from him, but his handlers or whatever, not the most fascinating kind of I'm not going to play message?
I mean, Kawhi never plays. I don't know why you think he could play in the Olympics. He never plays. And for never playing, they gave him a 3-year extension this year. I mean,
got rid of Paul George instead.
Clippers might be outside of Washington and Detroit, the dumbest franchise ever.
I mean, historically, you were dead on. And even though Steve Ballmer, who obviously is that right? The guy that owns the Clippers now? Obviously a very smart man. They're still a dumb organization.
Yeah, I mean, you give $200 million to a player who doesn't play. And he's proven he doesn't play.
Yeah, no.
And he's not a bad dude, but you can't trust him.
Well, I mean,
they rested him all year, and he got to the playoffs, and he played like 4 games and then shut it down.
Yeah. It's sort of like drafting Sam Bowie. You know what I mean? I mean, once...
Well, Bowie didn't have an injury history until he got to the pros.
Well...
Really. He had one bad injury at Kentucky. I'm
yes.
sorry. But then he was healthy for a while and so forth. It's just... Who knows? He may have been okay today. I think part of that was 40 years ago, just surgeries and repair and so forth. But Kawhi is, consistently. He hasn't played consistently now about 7 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's managed to show up for a playoff run.
He managed to show up and get a check.
True.
A big check.
No, I mean, they got rid of the wrong guy.
I do have a new favorite player now, the guard for the Knicks. You did catch what he did.
Yeah. Jalen Brunson did not take all the money.
He took like $100 million left.
Yeah, and basically said so they can get these people.
That's correct.
He's put a lot of trust in
that
that organization.
3 years, 142.
He's not broke.
He's not broke, but he could have got a lot more, and he pulled the Tom Brady, which almost no NBA players do.
No,
none. He's the first one I can remember. I mean, LeBron tried to act like he was going to do it, but he didn't.
No.
Yeah, and he's the first one that I've really heard of that actually has done something like that.
I'm fascinated to see because, you think about you have moments historically in the NBA where there have been star players who have not taken all the money. Now, when I say historically, I'm going back 30 years or so. And said to an organization, build a team and that kind of stuff. I'm not going to take all the money, and then the organizations let them down. They didn't really do the thing. So I'm curious to see, with the recent history of the Knicks, and maybe this has changed, and maybe this is part of this change, whether or not their decision making is good going forward.
I just think sometimes it's peer pressure in the league. It's just social media. You got to get that bag. That's the term. Got to get all your money. Well, and then at the same time they tell them to get all the money, then they criticize the team. That the commentators who say he deserves all of his money, then they'll turn right around and criticize the team when they can't put anybody around him. Well, it's the craziest thing ever. New England had the recipe.
Yeah.
And Kansas City Chiefs have the recipe. Mahomes is now not even close. He's not even in the top 10 in terms of the money he's making.
Yeah.
But he purposely, set it up this way, and of course he makes millions in endorsements too, just like Brady did, and so forth. So there's other ways to do it if you truly want to win.
What's fascinating about what you just said though is that Jalen Brunson does not make millions in endorsements. He literally put all this into the bag, into the basket, and said, because he's got, like we said, he's not broke. It's not like he's poor, but he did take the option.
He sacrificed.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't take it all, and he gave up a pretty good sum to try to pay other players and to acquire other assets. So I will give him that. And And if you're playing under a salary cap like they do in football and basketball for the most part, you know, sometimes if you truly want to win, you can't take it all where you can't have other good players around you. In particular, probably more so in football because you need more players.
Yeah.
Basketball probably you don't need quite as many, but still, that was gratifying to actually see somebody do that rather than this last 10 years of the generation of just getting all the money that you want.
Yeah. Well, and I think sometimes that also, we talk about the social media pressure to get all the money possible, but that pressure also comes from like the players union and that kind of stuff, that distrust, I suppose, that the organizations are going to do right by the players.
Nah, I don't buy that.
You don't think so?
I don't. I do think the players union plays a big role. I think they put pressure on the players to take all the money.
Yeah.
I don't think it's because they're scared that the team won't do the right thing. The team is.
That's the message they use.
Yeah,
I don't know that that's.
yeah,
I mean, I don't know what they actually think.
I mean, you never know. You know, when you're trying to build a team, if you're getting the right pieces anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't know that, but. I will say, you know, in a salary cap sports, that's what you got to do, in my opinion, for the most part, or win early.
Yeah.
You know, just like the Pittsburgh Pirates right now, they got a phenom pitcher, Paul Steins. I think his name's Paul Steins. He's going to, you know, last year this time he's pitching at LSU.
Right.
And now he's Tuesday he will be the starting pitcher in the All-Star game.
Yeah.
Well, you know, the Pirates are traditionally they spend no money.
Yeah.
Well, they've got a window, in my opinion. They got about a 4-year window. I think he's signed up from being drafted for 4 years. They have a window right now to go all in and use him as a pitcher like a rookie quarterback, where you're not paying him tons of money. Go out and get other players and let him go all in and try to win right now, because you got to, you know, this pitcher will probably be with the Yankees or Dodgers, you know, in 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, his next contract will not be in Pittsburgh.
Unless he just signs, you know, you can offer him an extension right now that, you know, that's $20, $25 million, $30 million a year that I would take in a heartbeat, especially as a pitcher. You could blow your elbow out, but
right.
It may not be wise down the road to take it. We'll see what he does. But if I'm the Pirates, that's what I do. I go all in right now and try to win. You
know, but that's another interesting thing. I mean, we started out talking about, you know, the dumb Clippers organization. I mean, the Pittsburgh Pirates have, for many years, not been a very good organization.
They draft well now, but they don't spend. You know, they're just, you know, the money is not equally divided in baseball.
No,
So
there is a richer and a poorer part of baseball.
That's correct. They don't have the TV contracts and
revenue sharing and all that.
They don't have all that stuff. So you have to be frugal just to make any money. Tampa Bay does it well, but this is a time where Pittsburgh can actually, you know, make a move, and you know, your window may only be 3 or 4 years, and you may have to bottom out again. But at least you got the best pitcher in the game probably for the next couple of years. Try to go all out. You know,
I mean, I always think of the Marlins organization, where they have 2 World Series, I think, and both of them were basically like, we spent all this money to win a World Series, it panned out, and then sold everybody out of there.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that's a formula for the Pirates at the moment. I think the rules in terms of baseball financially have changed since then. It's a little harder probably to really just kind of pull that off.
Right.
But still, I mean, if you're right, if you've got some phenoms, and basically that was the case with the Marlins. I mean, they had, in both of those instances, they had drafted some good young players and put the money to put free agency around.
And I think with the elimination of steroids, now you have all the testing and so forth, you can now draft a college player who's proven in college, 2 or 3 years, got, you know, 21, 22, and you don't have to put him in the minors for 5 years.
Right.
You can draft him and play him the next year. And I think more and more teams are going to do that. 2 teams that did that this year, Pittsburgh and Texas. Texas is the third baseman, or maybe it's the left fielder for Texas. I can't remember. Left fielder, third baseman was drafted right out of college, did not spend any time in the minors playing.
You know, I wonder in a way, and maybe this has helped baseball unintentionally, like they didn't really think about it, but it's actually worked out for them, is that because of how good the College World Series and how big it has been in the last few years, and then they draft these players that you actually know them from college, and then they show up and put them on the field, it really helps kind of bolster a kind of fan transfer, I think.
It does. I mean, I just watching the draft last night, I recognized a lot of the players.
Yeah.
I saw them play in the World Series, saw them play in the playoffs. I mean, I have no idea. The shortstop from Texas, or, I mean, the high school kid from whatever, I don't know who those guys are.
Right.
So it made the draft a little bit more exciting. You can kind of latch on to those players. That's what the NFL is. You know, people have seen those players play. The NBA, not really.
No.
Because a lot of them are international players. They're only been there
We knew
1 year.
Reed Shepard and the two French dudes, never seen him before.
And he has not been disappointing at all, has he?
No, he's
played
been a lot
two
of fun.
games. He's been awesome. Awesome.
He really has been. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be right back here on the Brown Sports Bag, presented by McDonald's of Glasgow.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
All right, John, we're back here on the Brown Sports Bag. My favorite golf event, and I only say this because I don't really watch golf, but I always just love to hear the commentary about it, is coming up this week, that being the Open, what used to be called the British Open, because it's always played on some course, especially, I think, the Royal Troon in Scotland, where, like, the weather is horrible, you know, it's like a gale force winds coming in, and you're just like, this has got to be the most miserable experience. And I mean, you get paid to play, you know what I mean? You got your sponsorships, and you're going to make a little money. But can you imagine if you're the dude finishing last in a tournament, an event like that is just so miserable to be playing in to start with?
Well, you're pretty good if you're last in the Open.
Well, I mean, you are pretty good, but
Right.
still, I mean, it's
No, you never know what you're going to get.
actually being last would be great. That means you don't have to play the last 2 days of it.
Well, if you make the cut in last, you
Yeah,
do,
yeah.
but you're going to get paid, though.
Yeah.
But, yeah, the Open is pretty neat. It just depends on the weather. I mean, if it's bad weather, wind and rain, which I like to watch them struggle in, that's pretty cool. If it's not, of course, you know what's unique about the Open is those courses are all seaside courses. No trees.
Yeah.
And the sand traps or the bunkers are actual penalties. You know, they're
Yeah.
deep, and it's hard to
They're
get
like
out of.
bunkers, like a bomb blew them out of the ground.
That's exactly right. So it's it's clearly it's unique, and you play the ball mainly on the ground because it rolls a lot farther and so forth. It's a different style, but it's kind of neat to watch.
Yeah. So that's this week. You know, a lot of, if you're a golf fan, there's something for you this week.
Just starts early.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's starts like 3 or 4 in the morning.
Yeah.
You know, if you're one of those, but
You got to set your clock by Greenwich Mean Time in order to
yeah,
watch it. So
yeah,
you got it right.
It's early.
So, and then coming up tomorrow night is the All-Star baseball game, which
I would say the All-Star game. I hate all All-Star games. If I was king, I would ban them all. But anyway, I'm not king. But probably the baseball is the most competitive of the other two.
yeah,
And not counting hockey. At least baseball, the baseball All-Star game looks like a baseball game. Mm-hmm. Of course, they've stopped. The NFL doesn't even have it anymore. It's touch football,
Yeah.
or flag football. One of the two.
they
It's
got
flag
some
football
skills competitions
and
stuff
flag
too.
football,
Yeah.
and NBA should stop theirs. It's a joke.
Yeah. It's I'm not really a big fan of the All-Star games, and you know, Major League Baseball tried to make the All-Star game interesting by determining who's going to be at home
Right.
in the World Series,
Which
but
is kind of ridiculous.
yeah, I mean, it was just a scheme, not really anything great.
You think the Marlins or Pittsburgh really cared? They were going to be in it anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. And we've had some pretty interesting MLB All-Star games, I think, in the last few years. So we'll see how it goes.
Well, watch it and tell me how it comes out next week.
I will not be watching it because I generally speaking, find it very boring.
I do too.
So there's that. I mean, I'm not.
I would rather, and I don't watch. I would rather watch the NBA out Vegas. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'll tune that in a little bit. It can get old and boring too, to be honest with you. But it does. I do like watching. You know, Reed Shepard was unbelievably good.
Yeah.
His first 2 games. I mean, he was over 20 points, 6 or 7. I mean, he just looks so at ease, no matter what environment he's put in. I mean, looks like the best player out there. Of course, he's a 3rd overall pick. He may be, but he's just an amazing player, and it's still utterly, it's just mind-boggling how he did not start at Kentucky. It's just incredible.
You know, you mentioned the summer league for NBA. The reason it is more compelling sometimes even than the regular season of the league. Yeah, because they're all playing for a spot, so they're out there competing. It's competitive.
It's very competitive.
I mean, even more so, like I said, than some of the a lot of the regular season games.
Yeah, I mean, they play harder than that. I mean, you're playing for a check. You're playing for your either career in the NBA or maybe you have to go overseas, but you're playing for something.
So it is a lot.
I mean, I've been there. I've probably been 4 times when it's just started out. Mm-hmm. I always go like one day and so forth. So I've hadn't been forever, but I have been out there. But those guys compete.
Yeah. You asked me if I was, to tell you about the All-Star game, if I was going to watch it. Well, tomorrow night I'm actually going to watch some 7-on-7 football over at Barren County High School.
Okay.
So Barren County's hosting, gosh, dog, I can't remember who Coach Meyer said they were hosting, but they're going to be over there. And then on Thursday, they're going to have some more 7-on-7. They're going to have Monroe, South Warren, and somebody else on Thursday, kind of doing like a little round-robin 7-on-7 stuff probably. They'll divide it up. So, 2 teams will be on one end of the field and 2 on the other end. And so, we got some 7-on-7 going on. I'm not sure. I mean, obviously, what it does for you is it helps your receivers learn their routes and that kind of stuff.
Timing, that way. It helps the quarterback with throws, receivers, and defensive backs.
Yeah.
But it's and there has to be some benefit, or the coaches wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
But I would think overall, it's much more limited. If you don't tackle, block, or hit
right.
people,
that's
a lot to football.
Right.
And there's a lot of players that look pretty good in shorts.
Yeah.
But when you put helmets and pads and they start hitting them, they're not near as good.
Yeah. Well, and I think also another thing, I think a proliferation of the 7-on-7 stuff is part of the passing and the timing of the receivers and defensive backs, reading receivers and all that kind of jazz. But also you have these practices, and it's just an opportunity just to go out there and play, and let the players have some fun.
I feel sorry for the linemen, though.
Yes, well,
the linemen and the kickers, what do they do? They're just. I mean, the center snaps, right?
Yeah. Well, and so they've started having some lineman competitions, but I have no idea what those are. I've not seen one of those yet. I'm curious. I mean, if they just go like who can push the tackle dummy the farthest or whatever.
Yeah, no,
I have no idea.
I don't either.
So
we need something for linemen.
Yeah. Yes. Maybe they should have all wind sprint competitions for the linemen.
I don't think they want that.
But it's only 5 yards, right?
No.
I mean, you just do a 5-yard sprint. Whoever wins at 5 yards.
Maybe push a truck or something like that. Something like that.
That's it. You got to push a truck. You just, hey, Johnny, can you bring your truck out here? We're going to do the truck pushing competition.
See, I'm always looking for the non-stars, trying to help them out here.
Yeah, there you go. But so yeah, we got some football kicking up. I mean, as we mentioned, the dead period's over.
You got little. This is the time of year for local all-stars too, 10 and under, 12 and under, little league baseball, softball, all that's going on too. It's impossible for us to keep up with all that though.
Yeah, I tracked it over the weekend. They played the West Kentucky State tournament for the different age groups. And I think the one that got the farthest was the Barren County 12-year-olds played Russell County in the championship. I believe it was last night. They ended up losing the game 10-5. Everybody else kind of went out early. Our friend Warren Cunningham, I think, was coaching one of the teams this year. It may have been the 11-year-olds. I'm not 100% certain. But it worked out a lot of times. I try to get to some of those games, but my schedule this year was such that I just did not have the opportunity, which I kind of hated because I like seeing these kids at that age. It's a lot of fun.
A lot of enthusiasm.
Yeah, everybody's a winner. And I don't mean everybody's getting a trophy. I mean everybody's fired up, and it's a lot of fun. And the parents are all fired up.
I bet.
So, all right, this is Brown Sports Bag presented by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be back next week.
Thanks for listening, and be sure and join James and John once again next Monday at 4 for the Brown Sports Bag, a local weekly sports machine presented by McDonald's of Glasgow.
Coming soon to your FM dial, this is Fox Sports Radio, WCDS Glasgow, AM 1230.